Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Less Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices, and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Less Up Stores on all our social media platforms. Less Up, craft your own footprints.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704 11 1720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karohanga. Today is the 28th of April that is 2024. Of course, we are soon finishing this particular month, and of course, a lot of things are happening in the country, and we are here to just touch base on what could be going on, and of course, how better can it be run. We are not just casting stone or looking to ridicule people, agencies, or entities. We are just trying to have a conversation with Uganda to try to build a better future for ourselves and for the generations to come. These days, we often forget that this country, this earth, is not actually ours, so that we can build it and mold it for a better future. And of course, these conversations that we have here, we hope that they will help you enlighten and find out more what is going on in the country, and of course, offer alternative solutions. And there are many things that could be going right in this particular part of Africa. Like every Monday, I'm joined by candid gentlemen, and of course we talk about and we touch base, as I've told you, everything that is happening in the country. Today we're going to be talking about the idea of rationalizing government agencies. Many of these government agencies have been streamlined, and many of the people in parliament and the leaders say that it's high time that we come up with a one body for certain agencies. Now, many of these agencies will be merged into the mainstream ministries, and some have been actually left out. So what is the criteria for merging these particular government agencies? And have we actually thought through the process of rationalizing? And of course, have we looked at the downsides and the upside? Because as yet, we hope to save as government, but the question is, the people who have been in these particular agencies, how have they been rewarded? Are the pensions actually practical? And of course, what is the roadmap? How feasible is this particular idea? So we shall be touching base on that. That is through the alternative Talk TV on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can also send me a direct message. That is at Edgar Matthew Karuhanga, and I'll be able to read your messages subsequently as we continue with the program. And allow me welcome the gentleman here in studio. I'll start with you, Honorable Joseph Ochieno from UPC. You're welcome, sir. Happy to have you, sir.
Good to be here always. I try my best to be here every Monday evening. I nearly wasn't, because I have a major bereavement at home in Agongera, but I committed myself to this evening. But I'll be going. But that said, I also know that people seem to be dying substantially in this country. The last several weekends, I have been attending funerals and funerals. Last weekend, of course, just last gone, you know that we rested a major lady in this country, late Paul Mwanga's wife, who rested in Maokota. Friday, she was at Namirembe Cathedral. May her soul rest in eternal peace. In her case, at 92, she's lived her bit. Beyond that, I think that some of the other spaces have been going to, people are dying rather too young. And if you go into the details of many of them, it's as a result of absence of basic health services. Hence, the import of this conversation about public services in this country, which I think is, from an NRS perspective, shambolic.
Okay. What is that something that you're grateful for today?
Grateful?
Yeah.
Apart from my life and the life of my children and children's children already, which are grandchildren, and those I love, and I've got fantastic family, fantastic few friends around me. But I also have a fantastic belief that this country is possible, that once Museveni retires, the emerging young decent citizens in this country who are completely convinced and completely committed to the Republic of Uganda that our founding parents thought for and chose, and that if and when that is done, in diversity, we should be able to make the Pearl of Africa really be the true Pearl of Africa. Beyond that, of course, as an African nationalist and an African identity nationalist imposed a constructive way, not in a global north perspective. I generally believe that the African personality is a fantastic citizen of the world. The problem, though, we urgently, badly need leadership. We need leadership in this country. We need leadership in this continent, and we need leadership across the African world, including down in Brazil. So the African personality has got a major challenge of leadership, and that sort of is the down word for this. But of course, life we must celebrate continuously.
Exactly. Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Ochieno. I'll come to you, Mr. Charles Kazooba. He is the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. Sir, you're welcome. In your opening remarks, please say hi to the viewers, but also tell us something that you're grateful for.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I know this is my second time
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here.
sharing a platform with these eminent people.
Thank you.
Is very humbling. And when you are introducing yourself, for a moment I thought maybe I was in a BBC studio because of your eloquence.
Excellent.
It's not usual to come across moderators who are so.
Good guys, yes.
Yes. So I'm very grateful that I'm here, but also business has resumed in town. People are working, although still worried because they are not yet sure whether President Museveni has taken their concerns very seriously as yet. Looking through his communication, I saw his letter, which he wrote, and it gave me the signal that I've been looking in him for quite some time. You know, Museveni's policies come through his statements. In that letter, you'll find about 2 lines where he says, don't produce what you cannot consume. That is very, very important. Because a few months ago, I was asking myself, why isn't our president bothered so much about the collapsing tea industry, the collapsing cotton, the collapsing tobacco, and many other cash crops? So I found the answer in his communication that it's time to focus on producing what we can consume, first of all, then we can export the surplus.
Yes.
But this also gives us a bigger focus on where the president is taking us.
And where is that?
President Museveni is playing nationalistic, but also he leaves another leg in liberalism. And nationalistic in the sense that he wants to protect his turf. He says we should protect our producers. Actually, that was an element of mercantilism. Now, the president also says, we also need the global market.
Which is true.
What if everybody speaks that way? Because if you're looking at integration, why are you integrating? You are integrating to share your markets.
Yeah, to foster collaboration and market.
Now, if you're building Uganda, and you want to protect your manufacturers, that you even want, you have an idea of subsidizing them, just like, of course, the Americans and the Europeans subsidize their people. But here in Africa, if Kenya decided to protect their people, we also protect ours. Rwanda does the same. Then why are we integrating?
But primarily, you have to serve your community.
There have to be compromises. You cannot produce everything. You cannot. You cannot produce your coffee for consumption. There are people who are better and have specialized in that area for a very long time. You will not beat them. You are not going to make your own clothes. There are people who have invested in that area for a very long time. But there are areas where you can invest and for some time grow. So I fault the president. I think his economic system is at fault. It has a lot of contradictions. The same, of course, does with his political system.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Charles Kazooba. You paint a different picture. That anger, I don't looked at it because someone would say, you have to first conquer home, make sure home is okay, then export the surplus. That would be the basic ideology. But maybe I'll hear from Honorable Pollar Awich. She's the Director for External Affairs. Sir, it's always an honor to have you, and welcome back. What are you grateful for? Because, you know, why I'm asking this question, gentlemen, is that oftentimes we look at what is not working, but there is a lot that is working in this country. And if we decided to just try to appreciate it, maybe the world would be a better place. So that's why I'm trying to also add in the element of gratitude. Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Of course, I agree with you. I've always shared with my friends that oftentimes people have attitudes towards life in what you call the half empty glass approach. You know, if you have a glass of water and it is midway here, if you ask John, what is this glass? John may choose to say it is a half full. If you ask Peter, Peter will say it is a half empty. That talks a lot because you see from the two, the attitudes, one has a negative attitude. For him, he will just see the glass in the emptiness. He will not see in the fullness. He will be blind to the water which is there, but will focus to the non-water which is there. And sometimes this wears us down. I think research proves that those who have positive attitudes actually live longer. So I appreciate the idea of trying to fish out the positives so that we don't wear down ourselves with negative attitudes. So I'm back. The other day I must admit even to the viewers that I was really unsettled because I was traveling that night and as I was appearing I didn't have a visa. So my head was settling and it was such a long flight. It was 26 plus 14, about
38 hours.
About 38 hours in the air. So I'm back, and the people of Venezuela are great revolutionaries. They are very patriotic and they are good. And of course, that's the nature of my work. It is external. Tomorrow I'll be going to India to meet with our Congress in India. Now, I am, for once, drawing concern that, of course, our major concern day in, day out, is that in all that we do, especially for us as a ruling party, whether you talk in terms of data, figures, statistics, or what, we are mindful about the livelihood of the person. So that all these figures, should these figures translate? So that is what we keep struggling for day in, day out. And of course, as we know, we still have sentiments of challenges of which are met by ordinary person, but we are working towards that. So that is what we try in, day out, day in, so that we are not taken by the professional statistics gatherers, the professional researchers. So we said, fine, we would only want that which we see in the livelihood of our people, and that is our target day in, day out. About TC, I didn't want to enter into the debate for now. I thought we are just making preambular comment, but if I may go beyond preambular comment, is that he seems to answer himself. He says Museveni talks so much about producing what we consume, and if everybody was to talk like that, how would we be? But he answers by saying, you can't produce all you want. So the answer there lies. meaning that it automatically sorts out itself, like the supply and demand theory. The mere fact that you say by nature nobody can produce everything, it means that even if you advocate, somehow it will balance. Because according to you, nobody can produce everything. So it gets settled therein. It's automatic. So you have answered it. So while Museveni is advocating this, Ruto is advocating that. Remember your core statement that Museveni cannot produce everything, Ruto cannot produce everything. So it will balance. It's just like supply and demand. So you have answered yourself.
Okay. Let me ask Joseph, is there anything you want to add on this particular statement, or is there something that you want to shed more light on?
Which particular statement?
The trade policy of Mr. Museveni, saying that you first have to ensure home, then you can export the surplus. Is there something wrong with that particular kind of system?
Likewise, I also didn't want to go into it, but since you ask me, I don't necessarily agree with the suggestion that Museveni in any way necessarily cares about this country. There's no evidence that Museveni has cared about this country an iota. In fact, for that I want to link it with Comrade Awich's seeming suggestion that Mr. Museveni is Mr. National Love. No,
He is.
He's actually Mr. Disaster for this country. And if I would say so, over the last 38 years,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I don't know why we're starting this topic, Museveni came with the lies from Luwero about revolutionary polity, stumbled into power with the Tito Kellos in 1985, 86. From 1986, started boasting of how he was going to build railways internally. There is even a clip of him in 1988 taunting engineers and says his honorables are going to build the rail slippers, so there's no need for Chinese. That is a fact out down in social media.
Yes.
And he was doing mathematics, but at that time he hadn't gained height, you know. So you could see him a very flamboyant, sort of light guy going around, you know. And it actually looked cool. I'm sure for people who didn't know him. But for me, those of us who knew, we just tell you, we told you so. We knew this guy, man. So from that, what happened? Where are the rail slippers? Now the trains again doing the social media, where trains are looking for where to go. Here in Mukono, train, the guy stops and they literally see, there is no rail slippers. The guy just thinks in theory, let me try to push the engine, it will just rock itself. Just like on my way, I passed via Muyenga to see a fantastic family. And, you know, just as you're taking this route near Daily Monitor, happens to be in front of Total Energy. And by the way, these corporations are also very funny. And I challenge them, that where's so-called corporate social responsibility? It's common sense if I was the executive director of Total. Because NRA is such incompetent, but we're busy looting from their public through taxes. Would say that the road from Mukwano, at least up to the other end of Daily Monitor, no, we will do it.
But you know
But you know what I'm trying to say.
You know.
They would somehow make contribution. If there were this kind of conversation, it would happen.
Yeah.
So I literally got stranded and stopped. I didn't know where to go. And because I'm a fantastic driver, taking my side, I now had to look to the right. Literally have to go down this. So I opened my window. And these body guys were actually laughing at me because they actually saw how I was struggling. Here in Kampala. Now, as I was getting annoyed in a nice way, there's a rail slipper. The rail is that connected from the industrial part of Kampala, planned by Uganda People's Congress, onto the other end. That also too dead. So where's Mr. So that is the only thing about the rail. I'm giving you an example. What I said. Fast forward to 1987. You know what this guy did, Charles? Museveni sells this country to IMF and World Bank, Anglo-American establishments, and sells everything UPC sold, tried to build for this country, to private profit, you know? In exchange, from the sale of Uganda Commercial Bank, sale of Dairy Corporation, sale of foods and beverages, sale of every item of our nation state, properties of you, the citizens of the Republic of Uganda, predominantly built and founded by Uganda People's Congress. There is not a single thing Museveni can say, I sold Uganda Commercial Bank, invested the money there. After 40 years, maybe in this case even 30 years, you know, these are the fruits. You children of Uganda are actually flying high. See? Kill Uganda Commercial Bank. I mean, Uganda Airlines. The Tororo airstrip, which is the airport today, is a cattle crop. Systematically, there is nothing. Picks education, privatizes education, picks health, privatizes health, and I was trying to say this at the introduction. So there is absolutely nothing. Picks agriculture, part of what Charles is talking about. As I say, it's a slightly different topic. You know, there is no aspect of ordinary agriculture, predominantly subsistence. We are 80% a subsistence economy, but agriculture contributes just over 20% of our GDP. But at the same time, I am going to Tororo, I'm going to Nagongera, but I'm now revealing. I'm going to be buying tonight maize flour from Kampala to take to Nagongera. You know? This is extraordinary. So now people buy fruit from towns to take them to the villages. It used to be the direct opposite. So you can actually see the rural economy, where still the majority of our citizens are there. And then I say, because the link that Charles continued last week was the topic about taxation. And then you wonder, where do our tax dollars go? Where do our tax shillings go? The tax shilling does not go to the roads. The tax shilling does not go to hospitals or for health facilities. Tax shilling doesn't go to education. Tax shillings does not go to agriculture. I have little attempts with the poultry and piggery. You know, I continuously have to buy medicine. You know, to treat these things. When I was growing up, vets and agricultural officers were at local sub-county headquarters. And they're free and voluntary. One of them even married in my home. So what exactly has Museveni done to the citizens of this country? So the fact that Museveni broke this country, broke its economy, broke its health system, and broke it and sold it usually to a few of themselves, and there is no evidence. So in this case, the average Ugandan child today at 18 is at far more risk than at any time, maybe pre-1952. Because even before independence, by and large, you couldn't say that the average Ugandan child who was reasonably clever enough could not come from Chinoni Primary School, find themselves in Buda. And I know my good brother here would want to say that go to entire school. Entire school was not particularly bad. Yeah. Not anymore. Okay. So I don't really think that applies at all. Then the final thing, though, as you said, that you're asking us about what was good, which is basically linked apart answering it. No, I was talking about life. So I don't see anything that I can actually record that is happening. Genuinely, as we're going to discuss rationalization, there's a cheeky conversation going on that, let's leave Uganda Revenue Authority because it has successfully collected. Okay, let's go ahead and leave the other one of roads, which is there is a huge corruption, UNRA plus another one, the ones who failed to do Nagongo Road. And by the Nagongo Road, you either do it or you're not there next year. You know? Yeah. Ministry of Works and the UPS administration worked and maintained roads. In fact, local government Ministry of Works did. My father's last job was Minister of Works, Tororo. And you know what? And we actually had, Ministry of Works actually had workshops to maintain and repair government vehicles, and it worked.
Yeah, and now we saw the minister going and crying and he's saying, please, the money that UNRWA is getting is too much. We are not getting any money. So where is that particular distinction? But we'll be talking about that. Charles, let me come to you before I come to Honorable to sum up this particular conversation. He talks about an element of privatization of the economy, and when you literally look at everything here, it's either foreign owned. There are very, very few big corporations that are owned by Ugandans today. And one would say the taxpayers are actually foreigners. We're not seeing many young people building businesses. So do you think in the long run, this privatization has reached a point where it's now choking us and has created an inequitable society where we see some people who have a quality of education that is maybe $2,000 per term, then we have another person who's paying $20,000 per term in this particular kind of system?
I really wouldn't blame President Museveni and the NRM for the structural adjustment policies, because anybody who has had an idea on what they are, they were externally imposed on us as a country, and not just Uganda, but so many countries, the developing countries, the less developing countries, of course by the Americans. So you cannot blame him for the privatization, liberalization, restructuring, the civil service, and many more. But why I would blame him, for instance, on that particular aspect is the mismanagement. Because if you look at the assets that were sold, the assets meaning that the corporations, the companies, factories, the hotels that were sold off. First of all, they were sold off to people who were literally CAADS.
Comrades.
Comrades, exactly. And when you say selling, actually most of them didn't pay.
Yeah.
They didn't pay.
They
because
shared.
They
shared our stuff. These ordinary guys, man.
So the proceeds from total sales, I think, amounted to around either 500 million or 500 billion. But even that money was took care of the process, the operations of selling off. So basically, we, as a country, we didn't get any profit out of the sales. But the fortunate thing is that when some of the entities were sold off, they started making profits. Some of the entities, the factories. So when you go to the records, you realize that some industries actually started making a lot of money. Now, like I've told you, from day one, President Museveni was never a liberalist. He didn't even believe in it. President Museveni he believed in socialism. But because Obote had attempted to start socialism and these guys removed him from power, I think President Museveni learned a lesson when he was still in the bush. And therefore, because the country didn't even have any revenue to talk of, he could not fight back. So he easily embraced liberalism. Liberalism meaning democracy, capitalism.
He stood to gain at that time.
Not gaining. He had no choice.
Okay.
He had no choice really, because they would have failed him. They wouldn't have let him stay in government for even 5 years. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
So it appears President Museveni, since the 1980s to date, he has been behaving like a loyal servant, but with the hope that one day he will liberate himself from that captivity of the West.
Okay.
And that is why, when I brought out that statement in his letter to traders, that is the direction we are taking. President Museveni is now saying, look, I really no longer fear you guys. I think
build capacity.
I think I can survive. Yeah? But my opinion is that nobody fights Americans and goes away with it. You can't. You just can't afford it. You can't.
Okay.
Those guys will crush you.
Let me come to Honorable. Honorable, what are your remarks on this particular aspect of really looking, when you look at the economy of this country, not many Ugandans actually really contribute. Even the owning of the particular entities, even paying the taxes themselves, there are not as many as them that directly pay this money. And many have said that this is a foreign-run economy. Do you agree with that, and maybe respond to some of the submissions made by the gentleman?
Foreign-owned economy. I was waiting for the same question that you have given to my colleagues about privatization, and I would want to answer it in the same direction.
Okay.
Now, privatization, to some extent, I agree with him. Maybe the packaging, I could put it in depends on the diction, the choice of words, but I would pretty agree with him. In that, if you look at Africa, where Uganda is part of it, and developing countries, we have been going through eras or waves of something. We went through wave of colonialism.
Yeah.
Country after the other was colonized.
Yes.
Others, like in the case of Uganda, calling it British protectorate. Being protected from what? It was just a sweet word of saying we are conquering that area, but they put it in a sweet word that you are going to be under our protectorate. So that wave of colonialism went throughout of Africa.
Yes.
Time went in for a long time, then the wave of independence came. When the wave of independence came, it came the wave of military coups.
Yes.
Nearly every part of Africa, save for Tanzania and the rest. When the wave of military coup came, it came to a mixture there, economic came in, the wave of the structuring system, the Bretton Woods institution. Bretton Woods is simply a city in America where the meeting which resolved to form IMF and World Bank took place. So we refer to it as the Bretton Woods institutions. Now, this came with Uganda, no exception. And there were many debates, even inside NRM, whether or not to take it, or even if to take it, to what degree. For example, people like Dr. Suroma believe that, well, you can privatize, but leave the main bank, commercial bank. Others are saying, don't touch water. Please don't touch electricity. Leave other things. So the debate went on. Now, at that time, why am I mentioning waves? I am saying at that time you couldn't survive. It was just a wave like any of these many waves I've mentioned. If there's a country that has survived it, I'm yet to see to what degree. So this came on. And some of us want that even if you do this privatization, remember you won't spare even morals. Because privatization in simple sense meant state should pull fingers out of this thing. Yeah. Leave it to private hands. Leave the economic base to private hands. Remove expenses in a social, in health. Remove in education. Yes. Remove in this. They said you can remain in defense. Defense, there was even an attempt to privatize it. You can start your security company. You can start your security. There was an attempt even to privatize security. Start your security. Even start intelligence. There are some investigative bodies. But the state maintains a hand. Now, we had warned that, remember that when you do privatize the economy, even the morals will be privatized. Moral means what we all believe is wrong or right. But once you privatize the economy, you won't now have a general moral. Everybody will decide what is wrong or good. What do we end? What do we see? A line of women on Speak Road. Prostitutes. They were not there. It came with the restructuring. 2, how about religion? We had only Catholic, Anglican, and Islam. I stayed in Akrite Estate in Nansana. To cross to Ohima Road, I get like 8 churches before I reach the main road, in a span of like 2 kilometers. And there are 3 shops. So there are more churches on the road than shops. And this is part of the morals I'm saying. So everybody now thinks on his own, I can put up my church, I can choose what belief I can have, and I can do that. So this is part of it. So this wave came. Of course, if you are in opposition, you will say it is the mistake of NRM. Yeah. But I am putting this, starting with the wave of colonialism, independence, military coup, all this, because these were continental sweeping. Okay? It is very easy to see it from the other side. Anyhow, we thought, or any government for that case would think you'll drive it to your best. So that is why we have it. Now, that is why now you say, it brings me to your point of the foreign ownership. Foreign ownership you can judge. It can be quantified in terms of capital ownership. Who owns capital where? Figures don't lie. So if you take it to that degree to say the economy is owned by foreigners, I can ask you, can we quantify? Maybe you can say, yes, let's go to investment authority. We look at companies, we see the shareholders, we see who owns what. Figures don't lie to that extent. Because even this privatization, by the way, even the advocates, the Americans or the capitalists, knew that they would come for it. They were not only saying, privatize, sell it to yourself. They actually said, that's what brought in the briefcase investors. Okay? So this is the mix that we find ourselves. And that is why there's the advocacy that we need the collective response. That's why you see us gambling things like non-aligned, things like G77, because it is not a one-man's disease. It's a collective effort. If you stand alone, you can't. So it's not a wish.
If you continue with this particular agenda, he has said that you stand to lose a lot, because he says nobody can stand against America and survive. Do you think with all these economic policies that you're trying to come up, and you getting a rope that is going to really eventually take you out?
Which economic policy?
This liberalization, Museveni trying to now be a conservative, trying to work for his people. Do you think that the Americans will let you survive? In fact, let me not use the Americans. Let me use the international community. Do you think, aren't you isolating yourself in this particular case?
To put it bluntly,
okay.
Just a few months ago, President Museveni embarked on a campaign all over Africa that Africans should process their own raw materials.
Yes.
Now, that is a very big shift in political circles globally, because hundreds of years ago, the West,
in a minute,
and particularly Europe, depended so much on colonies for their industries, for their market. Now, by the time you decide to shift from selling raw materials, selling the raw coffee, and you want to start processing it,
selling the processed coffee,
that is the problem. That's where the problem lies.
Okay.
The West, because already our president, I would also be bold to say that he has become a liability internally.
To who?
To Ugandans, of course. So, coupled with the Western pressure,
yes,
I don't think that they can really handle it. I doubt.
Honorable Namina Toto, please respond to this particular statement.
About the fighting with America? I don't think that is the direction we would wish to have. I don't think Uganda would want a situation of a confrontational approach or fighting. What you would call a fight maybe would be if the economic policies we pursue in the best interest of Uganda conflicts with somebody else's interest. But I don't think we would want, or we even have the capacity to say we are confronting. If interests confront, maybe you would want to say a situation like President Mugabe once said that he would never be removed by America. Never. So when they asked him, why, do you have a strong army? He said, have you seen oil here? So he said, have you seen oil here? So, meaning that economic interest. So we would pursue what we think is our best economic policy. And of course, we would expect that we meet the Americans in the civilized world through multilateral associations, United Nations and the rest. And of course, if we do by mutual understanding, we deal with them, small as we are, but as equal partners in development. Okay. So I do not see a confrontational position now. For the case of raw materials, what happens now is this, even in petroleum, and that's what is bringing problems to countries like Venezuela. For your information, Venezuela was getting $50 billion per year, billion, from petroleum. When they got conflicts with America, they were reduced to 700 million. 49 billion and 300 million was lost in 1 year. Now, what happens with raw materials is, if you, now that's why you need everybody together. For example, if you say you're going to process your coffee and sell it, you know what the other party does? The buyer says, no, I will not buy. He says, are you selling to me? Yes. If you are selling to me, you will sell in the form that I want, because it is free sale, free buy, right? So that is now the challenge the other time. So now that's why I came back to the collective effort. Maybe if now that is what would mean confrontation, that they will now see you as a total ally because you're advocating your interest.
Exactly.
Because the other, Nescafe, for example, Nescafe will say, no, we are not buying finished coffee. We are buying raw. So are you selling to me? No. But anyhow, what you do, you don't confront your partner. You pursue your national interest.
Okay.
To what extent your opponent thinks you are stepping on his interest, that is a debate for another day.
Okay.
But there's no intention of an armed or economic fight with anybody. What you do, we pursue our national interest, whatever we can do to the best of our ability, and then the other debate will continue from there.
Okay, I think that's enough. I'll just read a message from George Mwebe, who says, Presenter, thanks for the show. Greetings to Mr. Ochieno, UPC man. It's true, it was in plan to leave the economy to foreigners, but as Baganda say, Ebigambo tebita, words cannot kill. We shall talk and talk, but the solution to solve all those problems is to change the bad system to federal governance. Otherwise, I think that's what you meant. Otherwise, we will talk until Jesus comes back for God and my country. Thank you so much, George Mwebe. I can see a couple of people, Zena Baker, Ayo, Ino, you all watching, Vincent Magombe, thank you, Philip, Lanji, Martin, all of you guys, thank you so much for watching. You can continue sending in some of your messages. I'll be reading them subsequently as we continue with this particular program. Let me come to you, Honorable, and we'll go to the main topic of discussion today, which is the rationalization of these particular government agencies. Now, the government is looking at this as something that is going to help in saving, the resources that have been duplicated, then some resources that have been mismanaged, and of course, reducing in a bit of corruption here and there. But Honorable Ochieno, just tell us, what do you think about this particular rationalization in your regard? Is there something that Ugandans should note out or should look at in this particular process? Because it looks like a very good roadmap to a first step to something better. What should we note out of these rationalization policies?
You know, at the beginning of the conversation, I emphasized something about leadership, and I don't know whether you got it, but I hope your viewers did get it. I get rather concerned by the submissions of my two colleagues before I actually give a quick response. The worrying thing that sort of almost counters what I said, that the urgent thing this country needs is leadership. The urgent thing this continent needs is leadership. The urgent thing that the African personality needs is leadership. And the African personality, including our good friends there, including my brother, young friend here, they were seeking federalism. I should know that at first, fair enough, we need to seek our identity and clarity and local self-interest. But two, we must be able to do so in such a manner that is coherent and consistent with the values and aspirations of the wider communities of ours. I am actually going to say that Museveni was never socialist and is never a capitalist. Museveni is basically Museveni. Museveni in the 60s went and tried to persuade the Nyereres that he was more Marxist than the Marxists themselves. Museveni is basically an opportunist who basically wants to make sure that has used every opportunity to fit and fix himself. Because when you talk about at any time, even before he went to sell Uganda and Eastern Africa and a broad part of Africa to Anglo-America, there is no evidence that he ever espoused anything to do with socialism, let alone the war in Luero. Actually, if we go to the war in Luero and we investigate how NRA conducted its war in Luero, the scars that the alleged leave onto UPC, you'll find that no, it was much more about of an identity, self-interest kind of thing, rather than, if you like, anything revolutionary. So that's necessarily not true. But linked to that is the idea that perhaps as Africans, and we're four African men, and the three of you are very handsome guys, you can't tell me that you're not convinced about yourselves that, well, you're also somebody that you can stand firm and say to George Bush. That worries me, particularly the young Africans watching. I don't want them to take away from this program tonight that anything that dubious Anglo-America says, you must say, yes, sir, or else we're going to become permanent slaves to them. I do not, I reject that. Yes. Number two, structural adjustment was not an imperative, Charles. The Americans tried this in Uganda in 1981. We refused, and I've told this program before, we refused America's SAPs. We refused SAPs, and we committed and we insisted that we're going to run on our programs, which was then consistent with a very broad, ambitious manifesto of 1980 general elections, which was now in 1981. And remember, in 1980, we were the only ones who had a manifesto. DP fellows didn't have it, CP didn't have it, NRA, of course, completely had no manifesto. We had a manifesto, and we committed ourselves to those manifestos. But the link to the manifesto and the SAP, Charles, I'm actually surprised that you seem to suggest that Museveni found shambles. And you forget that Museveni found an economic shambles because of the 6 months of their war. Museveni was a party to 1985 coup. Museveni, DP, a section of some clerics, plus a few individuals in UPC. They overthrew the elected government of UPC and fought amongst themselves, Museveni defeating the other. After that, of course, Kampala was in a mess. Kampala was in a mess, but in 6 months. But between 1981 and 85, Uganda's economy had a net turnaround. Charles, for your information, from 1981, on the basis of the UPC's economic programs, rehabilitation, reconstruction, and everything, the recreating and founding of new schools that Museveni has even failed to maintain. What we did in 4.5 years in Obote 2, Museveni officially has failed not only to match them, but simply to maintain them. To the extent, Charles, check your records. 1984, Uganda's economy had such a huge turnaround that we had, for the first time, OECD figures backed by the Bretton Woods guys, that we had the first rise in standard of living in 1984. The first time since 1970. In other words, in 4 years, we managed to turn around Uganda's economy, including the mess that had been created by Amin, who, with Moses Ali's and the people who brought them, the Anglo-Americans, the Israelis, are their friends. But we turned it around on the basis of UPC's economic programs, and predominantly using our locally generated, let me make this point, it's very important, locally generated resources.
I think you're a bit misleading. By the time they took power in 1986, the confines of government at then were almost bankrupt. The economy was almost at its worst.
Were you listening to me?
Yes, I was listening.
Were you listening to me?
Yes.
I told you that between 1981 and 85, we had a total economic turnaround. The collapse that these people allegedly claim.
That's what I'm trying to dispute, sir.
5 months is enough to destroy everything.
No, do you know what?
5 months.
So you guys are now amazing me. You give your, and by the way, I get a little bit disappointed, that you now want to dispute an economic fact, which is in government, which you can go and find in Hansard, by the Hansard, in Hansard, you can find it. And I'm telling you that Uganda's economy, and it's shocking if you guys want to try and do it, including you, young Mr. Biongaba, who was not there, chucking on the NRA jungle propaganda. I take strong exception to that, because, it's almost like reorganizing my thoughts here. And I raise this because it's important young Ugandans need to know, because it's very important to suggest, I am telling you that Uganda's economy between 1981 and 85 was a turnaround. In 1984, we had the first rise in standard of living. We reorganized agriculture, reorganized health, reorganized education, reorganized infrastructure. We reorganized every aspect of our national economy. Just go and check. Okay. The problem came in July 1985. Between July 1985, we had a mess in town. Now, that is the perceptive things that we can talk about. But we can talk about it, and by then I'm quite happy that we come back and discuss this very specific thing. Okay. with our figures at the next time. But what I was
Try
trying
to
do,
relate
but-
it to the question of the rationalization.
so to link it.
You will not.
Let him submit.
On the basis of the question of privatization that Comrade Awich is talking about, Comrade Awich seems to suggest that, I don't know whether it was Charles who seems to suggest that you can't sell our public assets, not provide evidence for where it went, and because it begins to make profit, for the boer, it makes profit for Anglo-America, and you're clapping, oh yeah, it's now making profit. I made an early submission to say, in any case, there was absolutely no need for us to privatize most of these things. Now, since I want to leave that there, and I don't want us to get fixed on this thing, come to the rationalization thing, which basically confirms my point. There was no need to so-called rationalize these agencies anyway. Government ministries were working, and in UPC's case, even Obote too, we managed to create a new double economic miracle and social miracle in 4.5 years, using 1/3 of the existing cabinet ministers. The problem in this country, whatever you're talking about, what Museveni is doing, they shouldn't have done it anyway, if you ask me. Rationalization is common sense, the reintegration of these agencies, because we created quangos, we created jobs, we created patronage, we expanded units for corruption, for absolutely nothing. There was absolutely no need. That's what I said at the beginning. But anyway, to return them, we can say, not thank you, we can breathe a sigh of relief. But it will not change unless we have a structural, strategic change at the top. Unless Mr. Museveni leaves, we can restructure and reduce these things to what they were perhaps in 1985. Nothing will happen so long as Mr. Museveni is still in charge. His brother, his sister, his son, and whatever his family, and a few of his patronage guys. In any case, the biggest problem is not about rationalization. You know what? It's very interesting. Mr. Museveni said that as a result of these reforms, Uganda is going to save 1 trillion shillings. It would save fantastic if that was our public money saved. But no, officially corruption loses 10 trillion Uganda shillings. This is what I'm trying to say. Yes, so really, we can rationalize until cows come home. So long as the system remains, we shall still be losing 9 trillion shillings less. Okay. In any case, yes, we need to be able to rationalize these things. But as I said,
do you think there's, in a minute, do you think it's all behind that the rationalization is genuine? Do you think President Museveni is working for Ugandans when he...
Is the one who came up with it? Museveni has never worked for Ugandans, and he's told you guys he works for himself and his grandchildren. Okay. I don't know what he needs to say. I know there's some people who joke that in Ugandans, until somebody chops you, you'll not believe that is a chopper. So that's what Mr. Museveni. But generally, anyway, these are public assets, and I'm simply saying that, the sooner we're able to carry out these reforms, return these things, remainstreams, do some kind of savings, efficiency savings, at the better. But as I said, unfortunately, the will from the top is really pressure. Pressure from the Museveni's friends from IMF and World Bank, who for many reasons have stopped the money flowing. So Museveni now has got to realize that I need to remain stream one, and then number two. Precisely. And on the other hand, go and beat up people in Chikubu, including vulnerable women, and to make sure we still suck out their money. In order to do what? In order to service our expensive lives.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Ochieno. No good remarks for the rationalization that many people had thought is the best thing to happen to Uganda in these particular days. Honorable Ochieno is saying there should be something that is missing therein. When we come back from the break, I'll hear in from Mr. Charles Kazooba, and I'll also hear in from Honorable Pollar Awich. This is the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly, because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Les Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Les Up Stores on all our social media platforms. Les Up, craft your own footprints.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704 11 1720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from that short commercial break. My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga. We're still tuning into the Hotline Show. This is the second and final hour of the show. And I'm receiving messages here. Continue to send them in. I'll be reading them as we continue with the program. This is Kalyango Musa Mtesa Sila. Thank you so much for watching. You say, Just to back up the argument of the gentleman speaking now, even if the entire House may not agree with him on matters concerning the economic situation then, aware that Museveni had opened up the rebellion against the government at the time, of which Museveni himself bragged about it in Mustard Seed, we had all the infrastructure, the public buses, the unions that supported the farmers. The regime was in love with its citizens. It was really serving the citizens. Let me come to you, Charles. And my question to you is that this particular idea of rationalizing the economy looks very beautiful on paper. And when you look at the idea, you're saying, yeah, this is good. We're going to be saving money. But what are we not seeing here that you think Ugandans should see? What is the soul behind the merge of these particular entities? Is it a time that we say the government is working for its people now? Can we say President Museveni, this is a kudos to him?
Usually when there is a policy decision made, I attempt to enter the mind of the architect of that decision or that policy.
Yes.
So that I understand why it's being made. Now, I have tried to establish where this suggestion came from as an idea. And my unconfirmed sources indicate that this was a proposal generated by a former minister who is currently on Katebe. But that idea came through operational creation, which is headed by Genocide,
Yes.
President's brother. So that and the PDN came through the OWC. That is as far as I'm being told. But why? And it has gained currency. In fact, the president bought it immediately. And he instructed the intelligence services to do some fact-finding mission to find out whether it is to a viable project. And hence, it was established that indeed it would save government some money. Some of these agencies, although they have usually not so many people working there, but they spend a lot of money. They spend on consultancies, workshops, conferences. They have hefty allowances. They pay themselves very well. So, despite having the same qualifications as their counterparts in the ministries, these guys are having juicy placements in those agencies.
Yes, which is true.
So there is a conflict. Their counterparts in the ministries have, over time, gotten demoralized. They can't even work. But these guys, they're okay. When you look at UNRWA, National Water, and others, Civil Aviation Authority, they are paid really very well.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? In me, it doesn't. I really don't see a lot of sense.
You just
in
mentioned
the
that-
decision. I have just been giving you the chronology of what.
Exactly.
But in my opinion, it does not make sense at all whatsoever.
How so?
We should have started with the political class. If we really wanted to cut on public expenditure, we should have started with the political class. Let's get these small constituencies back again into where they came from. right now 500 plus members of parliament, and I hear, I don't know whether it is true or not, but there's somebody who told me that by election time they will have created another 60 constituencies. That I'm yet to confirm. Now, you cannot be harassing the people who are doing work for you, and you don't want to touch yourselves. You are stealing, you are paying yourselves also big monies. You facilitate yourselves well, and for you feel you are doing better than they are. If it is to do with the conflict between the ministries and the agencies, there could have been harmonization of salaries. In fact, there was a proposal to look at harmonization of salaries across board by looking at your responsibility and your academic qualifications, so that everybody is at par. But sending these people home, and for you want to add on to yourselves more. You've seen there is another batch of RDCs.
Assistant RDCs.
Who have been added on.
Over 300 of them.
Over 300. All these people have to be facilitated.
Of course, that will burden the government by 7.4 trillion.
We have over democratized. We have disintegrated the country so much so that it has lost sense. Yes? Now, and I also agree with Ochieno that for such radical decisions to be made to reform the governance of this country cannot be ably done under President Museveni. It is impossible. It is a contradiction.
So what you're meaning is we are trying to pretend when we bring these particular...
It is pretense.
Okay.
It is pretense. We are not doing any service to the people at all.
But you've not looked at the savings that you're going
What
to make.
savings?
If you merge these particular
What savings?
entities,
1 trillion?
you have one budget here.
But
1 trillion more.
in fact, there is
For starters.
there is no substantive scientific study that has been conducted to look at the losses and gains
I was going to come to that actually.
in regard to that decision. Nobody, even government, nobody has done a scientific study to show how much loss and how much gain. The president was told about money. What about service delivery?
What is there to
Let me
lose?
tell you, let me give you an example. One time Mulago was cut off water. And I was very angry. I'm a nobody in this country, but I called the MD and I complained. You understand? I frankly told him, look, you are dealing with patients in a hospital. Leave alone, forget alone your quarrels between you and other government people. But could you try to be understanding, reasonable when it comes to Ugandans who are sick in that hospital? I think after some few days, water was reinstated. Had it been a ministry, the process can even take a month for your communication to even be discussed by their management committee, and then a solution to be found.
Okay.
So the red tape in the ministries is what had been circumvented by the agencies.
Okay.
That the bureaucracy in agencies is minimal. Things can be done there and then, unlike in the ministries. Now, what our discussion would have been, how many civil servants do we need as a country? How much are we prepared to spend on them as a country? 2, how many politicians do we need as a country? How much are we prepared to spend on them? You understand? Now, this is the kind of discussion that should have taken place. But you don't just wake up from bed and say, you guys, I think you should go home. Why?
Doesn't work like that. Okay.
Why?
Okay.
So we were cheated because we are unable to discuss from scientific findings.
It's just someone who sits and they think
And me,
the idea is what
that
should
is
go.
what I
Okay.
reject in totality.
Okay.
I don't even believe that talk.
All right.
So for reforming governance, it can't be done under President Museveni as we talk.
Okay.
And the reasons are really very clear. Because if you attempt to reform, then you are most likely going to undermine his government indirectly.
Okay, Honorable Awich, these people talk about the quality of the services that these entities have been giving. Yes, it looks, the advantages are numerous. On my side, I'm looking at saving more money and, of course, having a bit of a few civil servants therein. But then my question to you is, if there's a mistrust around this particular area, first of all, for at the time and the decision, how did you come to the decision of saying this should be rationalized, this shouldn't be rationalized, the criteria and the heart behind the rationalization? Sir, do you think there is a genuine heart behind this, or it's another kind of game that we are playing?
Yeah, no, it is genuine. Now, first of all, my two colleagues have tried to say this and this or that, but in a sense, I get both of them to say rationalization is a good thing, irrespective of whatever words they have used. Maybe they seem to disagree on the method of doing it. And actually they came out to say, we want to do it, but without Museveni. We want either President X to come and do it or President Y to come and do it. So they agree. They agree that we need to rationalize. But back before that, we need to know what is rational, because our viewers need to learn. Because if we take a discussion and even our viewers don't learn, don't get the conceptual framework, then we're not helping our viewership. Because we shouldn't be like my colleague in the Congress, who puts it in a way that, like somebody was one time complaining that how comes when I go to the hospital, I get, somebody comes with malaria, he seems to get there was some uniform medicine, I think he was seeing painkiller. He said there's a uniform medicine, whether you come with leprosy or what, you get it. So the congressman seems to answer every question. If you came from planet Mars and you hear him explaining a question that you have posed, and you put somebody, what do you think Ochieno is answering? The question would be, the person from planet Mars will just say, he's answering, is Museveni a good man? So all the answers, whether you ask whichever question is about Museveni, and to me, it depends because he's my party chairman. So the whole question, whether you ask about a flower, Museveni. You ask about a bird, Museveni. So I think we should make our viewers know rationalization. One, the history is that over time, government bodies tended to create agencies for particular thematic area. And others came by an act of parliament.
Yes.
So these bodies, some were called authorities, where some were used other names. And they had the mandate, others had the mandate to set their own salary, which was not salary from the main civil service. And so we need to take our viewers to this extent. Now, after knowing that, our viewers should also understand that where is this cry coming from that has led us here? Actually, the biggest cry was from the opposition.
Yes.
Opposition were the ones crying, you people have too many ministers, you people have too many RDCs, you people have so many authorities, authority on this, authority on this. Now that we have had the cry and we are doing it, say no, it is wrong. How? It now takes me, I cited it somewhere, Lucky Dube, my greatest musician, says, in a song called I've Got Jah, he says, if you keep telling people what you don't know, they will hate you.
If you tell them about yourself, they will say you are boasting. Tell them about somebody else, they say you are gossiping. So he said, I better tell you about Jah. He's the only one who doesn't care when you tell people about his name. Because I can't believe that the very advocates, the opposition who were saying, rationalize, you have too many authorities, you have too many authorities. Now that government says, we have heard the cry, and a research was done. I attended a SEC meeting in the State House where the president brought out the views that were collected. It came, of course, saving the 1 trillion and many other things that did not come today for. A conscious decision was made. And it is the same people saying it is wrong. And they are saying, so,
Honorable,
yes.
isn't it ironical also that you talk about rationalization, and a minute from that, you are bringing new assistant RDCs who are going to increase more on the tax burden and more resources. So, the question is, how genuine? That's why I even asked you if you're genuine, because you cannot tell me you're rationalizing, you're saving, and then you're appointing new assistant RDCs.
That is why I went back to tell you the genesis of the multiplicity of bodies. And that's why I went to define what does rationalization mean. Rationalization, therefore, means bringing back these authorities. And for the sake of viewers, some of them, bringing them would mean actually an enactment by law, because many of them by birth of legislations. So, I don't know whether you want to say, okay, you are saying that you are rationalizing, but by another action you are increasing personnel. Exactly. Of course, you are not going to say that even now when we rationalize, you are not going to increase more people in the Ministry of Water, that you are not going to increase more teachers, that you are not going to increase more doctors, that you are not going to increase more engineers. The more the country develops, the more the economy expands, we shall definitely be increasing on all sectors. Now, whether this one in the Ministry for the Presidency is legitimate or not, it is subject to you. Suppose this increase was the recruitment of more doctors. Would you say now, how are you rationalizing when you are recruiting doctors? How are you rationalizing when you are recruiting teachers? So the economy, by its growth, will not remain the same. But whether or not this particular ministry, this is a ministry for the presidency, if it is a query to that, then you have a right to query that. But what I am saying is, rationalization will not mean a stop to further recruitment to civil servants, whether in medicine, whether it's in engineering, or whether in water, wherever it is. So now, I'm surprised that hearing the calls from the opposition, you have so many authorities, road authority, electricity authority, the aviation authority, forestry authority, whatever authority. Please, NRM, downsize. Immediately you start it, the same people, it is wrong. Is Lucky Dube right? Further, on the question of the economy, that he likes, it is my Congress pet concern about how good the 4 years after mean. Colleagues, I was in NRA in 86 when we captured power. Even 81, after election to 85 that you are saying, Congress, there was only foods and beverages.
There was no election in 85.
No, I'm saying from 81 after election, 80 to 85. Listen, there was a body called Foods and Beverages. There was Army Shop. It was a common practice that you needed to get a cheat, to get sugar from Foods and Beverages, to get soda. And people are selling cheats around town. It is not now that you walk to any shop and buy sugar. So, for your information, the beer that was in Uganda up to 85, allocation committee would sit and say, Bushenji,
yes.
Can I have my right? Bushenji, you are going to get 400 crates of beer. Remember, you are buying. Kitgum, you will get 200 crates of beer. Remember, you are buying. Up to 86, sugar was being allocated. Cheats, you would only sell beer or soda from the army shop, which had the bottle top of the army's tag. Yeah. There was no goods. So I don't know which economy the congressman is saying was there. You couldn't get any single supermarket. People used to learn in commerce that there was something called supermarket in secondary school. So the economy, I had kept quiet about it, but the economy is talking about sugar. So we are allocated. What is the opposite now? Now you spend lots of money to actually advertise the good you have, to advertise your beer, to advertise your soda, to advertise your sugar. You need to sponsor football. You need to sponsor this. Against, yes, but then why is he lying that there was goods and services?
I don't tell lies.
When people were selling seats, what you do if you had an uncle in foods and beverages, which was the monopoly of goods, it was under Ministry of Commerce. It was under Ministry of Commerce. If you had an uncle who could give you a cheat allocation of 500 kilograms of sugar, my dear, you'd sell that paper in cash.
Okay.
And somebody will go to foods. Is that the economy you are talking
Let
about?
him first answer,
Now,
because
no, just a moment.
You say he's lying, and I want him to respond to that before we forget it. Please respond to his allegation.
In normal times, I would have asked Comrade Awich to withdraw, because it's a very strong word, lying.
Exactly, that's why
I
I
don't
wanted
tell
him to
lies. I
respond.
grew up very, very well.
Was there not selling cheats from foods and beverages?
Let him first.
Wasn't there beer being allocated?
Just a minute.
Allocation committee
No.
to sell.
At my level, Comrade Awich, at my level, you know, Awich, I know Awich's problem. Awich said that I talk about Museveni and his chairman, so it's maybe a little bit hard this evening. But unfortunately, Mr. Museveni rules this country, and everything I say about Mr. Museveni knows. Mr. Museveni knows that anything and everything I say about him, and I've said about him, and I'm going to say about him in the future, are true, and they can't challenge it.
Okay.
And when we come to discussing facts, they can't challenge them. And Mr. Museveni knows that he had a monopoly of propaganda backed by Anglo-America, backed by the William Pikes of this world, you know, backed by the BBC world of this world, you know, yeah? And many of those other things are sunk. So people have been born into this era of propaganda.
But he's saying you're misleading the public.
I'm answering you. And now that when we're able to have some of this conversation put on the table, thanks to the proliferation of the media, up to and including people say like yourselves, you know, here. Other guys find it a little bit discomforting.
Yes.
The official liar, you know, nearest to my level is possibly, according to Dr. Botti, who says it's Mr. Museveni, who is a pathological liar who tells the truth only by accident. That is according to Dr. Botti. But to suggest that I tell lies about things that I've asked
About the economy.
About the economy.
About the economy.
To tell you
About the
things
economy.
That all you need to do is to go to parliamentary Hansard and tell. The context of the economy is this, and I said it again and again, and Comrade Awich, I don't want to go too far. In 1981, me, I was a relative adult, and you guys were not. Amin had ruled and ruined this country for 9 years. 1979, 80, when the Musevenis came and the Mwangas came, Uganda was in a mess. In 1980, Uganda was in a mess. 1981, when we took over government, you know, was part of what he's talking about. Of course, essential commodities went bust, you know, empty shops were empty. We turned around the economy from 1981. By 1984, you know, there was no lack of essential commodities in this by 1984, and that's a fact, you know. Now, some elders out there may go ahead and help you about these other things. And in any case, actually, these are figures. You can check on economic textbooks. Comrade Awich, what you're referring to in 1981, UPC took over government in 1981, December 1981. So really to refer to many of these things about 1985 is a false. Now, the mess that we had in 1985, as I said, is from July 1985. And you know what? I think, Comrade Awich, you write a letter to people like Amama Mbabazi, write letters to people in any of those generations, some of whom were hung around town here, write a letter to somebody like Sir Richard Kaijuka, who was chairman, managing director of Uganda Commercial Bank. I think these are the people who should begin having conversations, because some of them are NRA. But people like Sir Richard Kaijuka was by and large UPC, he's now leaning towards NRA. Because he was chairman, managing director of Uganda Commercial Bank, when I sit with him, it may be a fairer conversation than this. Because
But do you agree
for
with what
us,
he says that
it's a
they were
nonsense.
buying these things in rations, they are taking lines, making lines to buy these particular
That is
commodities.
true.
They
But
were inadequate?
It is a true, because that's what we found in 1979.
I thought I still have my time.
Yes,
You have
yes,
changed
yeah,
completely.
yeah.
No, but it's,
I just wanted him to highlight on that particular issue.
1979, 1980, and a part of 1981. I told this program before, Minister for Supplies, we set up a Minister for Supplies. The reason why we set up a Minister for Supplies was to address these things, and it worked. The reason we set up a Minister for Rehabilitation was to basically address some of the mean mess that is referring to, and it worked. The point really is context. The absence of essential commodities, we found it here. In fact, Museveni found it here. And his short-lived administration, him, the Lule, and Benices, failed. Our radical programs of Obote's 1981 worked and restored commodities in our economy.
Honorable,
and
as
the economy
you respond
actually
to
did
this
work
particular
very
thing,
Well, I am still insisting that throughout 81 to 85, there were no goods.
I was in town, but you were not.
There were no goods. Goods that you would get, consumer goods, you would get cheats where you have an uncle through the monopoly of foods and beverages. Two, one indicator was this concept of advertising was not there. Do you know you would have news of, for example, on Radio Uganda, when you are waiting for news, do you know what would happen? They would play some idol song, because there was no advertisement. Right now on every radio, there's no space. There were, check and see in those days.
of course.
There was a long space
There were no mobile
because
phones
there was
around the
no
world.
goods to be advertised. And only those, even KK for, what do you call it, the thing for sieving majani, people would go and import from outside.
Because that was the time, Honorable.
So,
40
but
years
then
down
that
the
was
road,
the
people
time.
were
But then you can't say the economy was good.
Yeah, I think it was an exaggeration.
It was
of
not
this particular
there.
excess.
Anyway, now on this concept of, on the concept of rationalization is
Please
good.
answer this when you're answering that, we are making a submission. What is the criteria? Because there are some agencies that have been taken back to the ministries. There are others that have remained. Is there, you said you were in the research that was tabled at the State House. What informed the decision of some entities being merged and others left independent? He also hinted about the salaries and the unequal salaries across these particular bodies. What really informs that particular decision?
It's so multiple, you can't list them here. So multiple what informed. Some of them, for example, can the mother ministry do it? Yes. Some of them, does this need a lot of specialization that we put it aside? Yes. Some of them was it functional or it was not? Yes. So it is multiplicity, and that is why it is going to go back to the legislatures. My concern though is that we hear rumors, like some newspaper had a headline, that some members of parliament are being bribed to have to make those decisions of criteria. But to answer your question directly, it is a multiplicity of reasons as to which one should remain, which one should go. Okay? Like I've tried to cite, but there are many. So finally on this, I want to talk about, if my colleagues say rationalization is good, but first I want to agree with him that personally, and in the views of many others in NRM, people are still debating, do we want this political size? Do we want the numbers of parliament? Or do we want the cabinet per se? So that debate is ongoing, and I take notice of that. Okay, if it's so decided that we do that, I don't think I have any particular attention to it. Of course, to the appointing authority, like President Museveni, many things make his informed decision. By the way, some of the cabinet that you have are a demand of international relations. For example, when Uganda ratifies ILO convention that you are bound to protect labor, part of the provision in the convention in the world is that, please, if you ratify this, we want a minister for labor. So by Uganda ratifying ILO, you are bound to say Minister of State for Labor. Others, you find, you ratify convention on the rights of the child. You commit yourself to the world that we are committing to protect the rights of the child. inbuilt there, they're saying, please, we want a political leader for this. So some of this many cabinet that you see is either a own creation because the appointing authority feel there's a task needed, but also some are international obligation. But over it is, a colleague, I have no particular stand rather than frozen position. It can be discussed. Okay. But on the question of whether they agree, but they want it done by President X, I think that is a mandate of Article 1.
It's on record.
You see, Article 1 says power belongs to the people, and it is the people who will decide. If that is what they want, Congress will be a candidate in 2026. And we ask people, do you want Museveni to be the one to carry this or not? Some of us think this should be
Thank you.
Museveni.
35 minutes past the top of the hour of 8. It's a heated conversation right here on Digitalk TV. My name is Edgar Karuhanga, and of course I'm still with Honorable Ochieno Joseph from UPC, and of course Charles Kazooba from the CAADS, and lastly Honorable Pollar Awich from the NRM. He's the Director for External Affairs therein. Thank you so much for watching. I have a couple of messages here. I'll read one before I invite Honorable Joseph to say something. A point to the NRM gentleman: I believe in science theory of which every leader must learn to analyze issues based on it. Finding the answers to every problem in leadership should never be a paramount priority, because the so-called problem with your optical view may not necessarily be a problem given to my point of view. Let me give you an example of the table in the center. For your angle, it has one leg, whereas from the angle of the congressman, it may not have legs. In that context, you will argue all day without coming to a conclusion that would benefit us, but rather try to view the issues in other perspective. Honorable Ochieno, he paints out a picture that we are trying to look at what is not really working here, but it's something that we all agree rationalization is something pertinent. As you submit, please also comment on the people who are going to lose jobs. According to a study, 15,000 jobs will be lost. Are we ready to compensate these people, and what is the roadmap there in for these particular people who are losing their jobs because of the rationalization?
In fact, if I missed the point about jobs and costs, you remind me. But no, I just want to say this, that Comrade Awich was very excited earlier. That he said, I think it was off comment, I got him. That I got him saying that, well, he's for this thing. No, basically what I was saying was that there was no need to have created these quangos. That's what I said at the beginning. In others, in any case, the status quo, as it was at the time, needed to have been mainstream because it was an expensive venture, number one, and it was a politically expensive venture. And to mainstream it, maybe I have my mini conditionalities, and that is, if you like, the disclaimer that Mr. Museveni needed to come out and say, look, fellow citizens, we broke up the systems that worked before we came from the bush and imposed ourselves on the people. We experimented, instructed by Anglo-America and others, and it has not worked. But now we think that we are at a crossroads. We think we need to be able to review these things and go back, number one. So if he did that, it would be a commonsensical thing, because we'll say yes, he's asked for forgiveness. But number two, I think Charles partly referred, and it's an important point. I said this in another debate. This is a subject we've been debating around the country, around the various networks. That these are normally actually matters of manifesto stroke policy positions of political parties. It's amazing that that we are doing it towards midterm, towards elections, and it's being done. Normally what would have happened was that the NRA would have gone to their people and said that, look, at the next election, because these are big things, including taxation, the next elections we shall review taxes. We now believe in a low taxation, or maybe believe in higher taxes for the rich, and maybe like in UPC's case, I am committed in the event that the UPC government is there to consider a particular windfall tax that I will not give out the information because that is our UPC strategic interests. But so on this one, you say that, look, we would remain stream government and ministries as a matter of policy. And you debate that on the threshold. What normally happens, this debate, and that's why it's very important, you guys do a fantastic job here. You, the media, would help inform people, you may help challenging us, technocrats like him would help remain streamers, so that at the end of it, we have a refined debate whereby the informed citizens look and say, this position of UPC, that's the position of NRA, maybe that's the position of FDC, maybe they're best on ABC. Rather than voting for a Mr. Handsome Awich, of NRA, the extras for Mr. Ochieno, who may not necessarily be as handsome, is because I agree with them on a particular position when it comes to local government reforms, or indeed public sector reforms generally. That is what should happen. But because we don't have a democracy in this country, it's a lost debate. But now that is actually happening, it's extremely important, and I strongly say this, Edgar, that this is a conversation. Unfortunately, this program is weekly. We need to have more of these debates, but of course, we know that Museveni has got advantage in terms of the size of the legislature, so whatever they want is going to get carried. But we need to be able to do so. But number two, also, generally, as a matter of interest, some of these Kwangos, I think someone was mentioning NSSA, National Waters National Water Sewerage Corporation. As a matter of interest, these Kwangos, these small organizations, as Comrade which rightly says, existed anyway. So many of these would be agencies of government. National Waters existed. Uganda Electricity Board, which NRA guys broke and sold dubiously, now performing pathetically. Uganda Transport Bus Company, which operated buses. And all those agencies did their jobs well. The issue is many of these that have been created while killing some others have been contradiction and have created many Kwangos. And we are saying we don't know under the same regime whether or not it would work. Now, your quick question, I know we're short of time, is this thing about the cost implications. Usually when we're doing local government reforms, to be fair, the initial considerations are normally about costs. Material costs, part of restructuring, partly infrastructure, then skills losses, and normally, majorly, anyway, in terms of people, the biggest expense component, and I don't know about this here, is that people normally take redundancies, people are laid off, and because they're public servants, they're generally quite expensive to be paid off in the name of redundancies. So whether these have been considered or not, I don't know. So not only is it their sizes in the number of people to be paid off bad redundancies, but what sensible governments would do, like UPC, and I'm giving this one free advice to NR friends anyway, is that these people can be reabsorbed within government without actually legally losing, and Comrade Richard, I don't know, is the law here. So if many of these guys are reabsorbed in the respective ministries, you may create certain challenges, but that is not normally what governments and local governments in reforms that have been involved, some of this work elsewhere, would do. The only thing though is that also in the course of doing this, you'd imagine, like I think Charles was saying, many of these people would have been people on contracts, short-term contracts, and not necessarily
they have formal pensionable jobs.
So if meaning that either contracts that mean short-term contracts that mean they're not necessarily long-term. So meaning I think legally they're not as secure as people would now be in long-term or permanent jobs. How many of those I do not know, because those are the details that I don't know. And if they exist, contracted ones, they're possibly the easier ones to deal with than people who were there on settled position. But I think, like Comrade Richard was saying, how the formations were, they may be, not many of them would possibly be more expensive to deal with that. And that's the cost of it. Now, finally, generally mainstreaming. In this case, the reforms would mean, therefore, that you have a leaner leadership, and much more effective. It would also mainstream information and delivery. But one of the reasons why I was actually criticizing is that when you have the culture under NRA, you don't know whether the usual spill of beneficial effects, that would apply, in this case, would apply under the current NRA environment. But closing remarks on this, nothing is going to happen in as long as we are not able to address the expensive size of the existing government. NRA, Mr. Museveni's office, kills Uganda's 3 billion Uganda shillings nearly every day. That's a huge amount of money. The size of parliament kills Uganda's money hugely. And then when you go to local governments, kills Uganda's money hugely. And yet local government is where most of the services should actually be. Now people see local government structures as political structures, and they don't see local government structures in terms of the empty health facilities and in terms of the third world schools that UPC built and NRA has failed to cook. So that really is where and how we should be looking at this. But these things are too important to be basically political point scoring positions.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Honorable. Let me come to you, Mr. Kazooba. There's, first of all, many donors have been working with these private entities, if you realize. And where do we leave this particular donor money? And also add on, maybe give us an alternative agenda in case we are to run this rationalization today, and by the government of Mr. Museveni that you don't trust to implement it very well. But right now it's the person you have. How best do you think it can be implemented to be more impactful, and also hint on the donor resources, and maybe you can also highlight on how we can try to make sure that the people do not lose a lot of jobs and maybe also have rationalization going on?
First of all, I need to re-emphasize my assertion.
Yes, sir.
That right now, there are no reforms that can have substantial impact on service delivery for Ugandans. It's not possible. And I've stated it over and over again. Reason being that we are now a corrupt state. So nothing really can have an impact. And why I say that under Museveni, it's because his system of patronage, of course, heavily depends on corruption.
Yes.
So you cannot detach them two. Now, the issue of donors working with Ugandans, times I keep asking myself, how does our government think? Because either these guys are the ones fighting Museveni internally. Actually, it is not the opposition. Because you look at the way policies are made, the way decisions are done, then you probably the real opposition is inside the bedroom of Museveni, not outside.
Example, which policy? I'm not asking for names. I'm asking for the policies.
We started fighting donors without reason.
Yeah. I say so also, yes.
Those guys had done nothing. It's us who
They were
started the
fueling
fight.
dissent.
Look at the number of NGOs that were even closed. These people are saying that the donors were funding oppositions during what. Today, the addition to poverty is because that foreign money is not going to come in. I've seen somewhere the donors are even now looking at withdrawing from health. And health is heavily funded by donors.
That's true.
I've also seen the president say, no, for us we have our money, we can survive on our own. That is a lie. Me, I don't fall for such lies. And that is why I've always said, before you begin a fight, first assess your strength. Don't just be reactionary.
How will this end?
Because they are useless fights. You confronting the West today is useless. It's not your fight as Africans. It isn't. We can fight another day, but not today. We are so weak. So weak. Because even the little resources we have, we mismanage those little resources. We want to go to the beach as leaders. We want to marry so many women as leaders. We are not frugal mentally. So why start a fight against such crucial people that are giving you the little resources, however little they may be? And the president, you remember, just a few years ago, appeared to be shifting towards the east.
Alliance, yeah. These days inclined.
You've heard Major which was in Venezuela.
Venezuela, China,
not Australia,
Russia.
But tomorrow I'm going to India.
Of course, India. That's what he's trying to say. Still, you're going to India.
Yeah. No, but I've just been from
always,
America.
Yeah, Russia, India,
No.
China.
Please, didn't this station know that I was in America and Canada? Yes or no?
You was.
I wish you were traveling, man.
He's an ambassador. he's a
Because I
diplomat.
want to remove the erroneous view that I only go to Venezuela.
No.
I have been in, you congressman, you know, I've been in
He's
America
only
for
talking-
weeks.
No, but bro, he's
I've
only
been in
talking-
Canada for weeks.
No, you have been.
Just about, this
He's
is
only,
May, that
no,
is
he's
April.
only talk, he's not talking about, he's talking about conflicts of loyalties.
Yeah.
And I do.
Let's
Now,
continue.
like I've been arguing, we create these problems for ourselves. The Americans have not done anything wrong to you. Nothing. But because of your conduct, because of your inefficiencies in governance, you begin the conflict.
Okay.
Because you cannot deliver on the political system you committed yourself to deliver. Because you failed to check yourselves on the credentials of democratic governance.
You're not ticking
You
the box.
begin a conflict with the West. Let me tell you why the Americans believe democracy is the best system. Scholars have argued over and over again that countries that practice full democracy do not go to war with other states. That is number one.
How about America?
Number two, those countries will not have internal wars. You look around in Africa, who is going to war and why? It's because you suppress people.
Okay. Let me ask you in just a
So-
minute, because time is going, and just a minute. There's also, you talked about patronage, that these institutions have been made to create jobs for cadres and things like that. How does this rationalization affect President Museveni directly politically? Do you think there is a way these people, the cadres, is there a way he can be affected politically, especially here?
If I were an MD of one of those organizations, and my organization is discarded, I would contest against President Museveni to make my statement. I really would.
Okay.
Because you see, these haphazard decisions should stop.
Okay.
This is a country of so many human beings. So one individual waking up and proposing something that should affect the 50 million Ugandans, please, for heaven's sake, do some small study. Consult people. He has brought up a very important issue. Before this was done, were Ugandans consulted? Was it part of the NRM manifesto? How come that it just comes?
Okay. Let me bring to Honorable Awich because of time.
In conclusion,
Yes, sir.
I would suggest, please, Your Excellency, Mr. President, and Major Awich, because you are directly at NRM. NRM should start talking to Ugandans. We have our problems. This top-bottom approach must stop.
Honorable, as you conclude, also just throw in that particular question this gentleman has talked about. It feels like you bring in solutions, you copy them and come and just paste them here. Parish development model, copied another script, come and pasted here. Do you think through the populace and I think through the eyes of Ugandans, as you submit that on that, please give us your parting shots as well.
Experiments.
About copying from somewhere else
And
and,
pasting.
bringing it, I will answer that. But let me make some few corrections.
Yes.
About, I still insist that this discussion should be factional. I mean, fact enough for our viewers to learn or to share our views. For example, the congressman makes a point that to justify the economy of 81, 85, or 80, 85, that it can be seen in the Hansard. What does that mean?
The answered.
Hansard, is it the Hansard of Parliament?
Yeah.
Hansard of Parliament is not an authoritative thing you can quote, because Parliament, the only thing that you talk in Parliament is that you are immune from prosecution. But anybody can say anything in parliament. So what does the answer in parliament say? Is it an authoritative thing that you can quote in court like a law? People even speak things in parliament. Anyhow, the only thing you have in parliament, in that record of parliament, is that what you speak, you cannot be taken to court. But otherwise, any member can say anything. Even the bill presented by the minister is still a bill until discussed. So I don't know what we want our viewers to learn about records in Ensued that demonstrate economy. So I wanted that clarification. That is, record in parliament are just pieces of minds of legislators. The only thing is that whether you say whatever, you're immune from prosecution.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I wanted to say is that I don't know whether my colleague now insists that because there is corruption, then we don't rationalize. Because he's saying, since there's so much corruption, rationalization would be unnecessary. No, let us rationalize. In any case, the fewer people that we shall remain with, the easier it is to supervise for corrupt tendencies. Okay. So we cannot say because there's corruption, then we don't rationalize. Now, again, you say that we don't have, the Uganda, possibly NRM started the war against donors. But there are other things which, subject to debate, somebody would say, isn't it true that your parliament is a sovereign country which can make its own law? So when it makes a particular law and that becomes a conflict, what do you say? Have you attacked them by making your law? Personally, I'm a person who believed before, say, the law of homosexuality. In my legal view, I thought we had enough. One, the Constitution of Uganda prohibits same-sex marriage. Yes. Two, the Penal Code of Uganda prohibits the same thing. So my view was that those provisions would keep the country okay. Somehow, I'm not a member of parliament, they came with that. Even when myself, I thought we are properly protected as a country. But be as it is, these are the 48 million Ugandans can't be in parliament. They're there through their legislative representatives. So if their representatives, which he was talking in the answer, have decided, who am I, are we?
I don't unanimously.
Who am I to do that?
That means all Ugandans agreed.
Despite the fact that I believe that the Constitution was enough, I believe that the Penal Code was enough.
Okay.
So, but that is it. So now, if another country says you are wrong, is that you attacking them?
As you conclude, sir.
Now, about NRM talking is that in a minute, please, NRM will continue to talk. We talk through many structures, through our party structures, through the majority of MPs who are our flag bearers. We shall keep talking and we shall listening to the views of the people. Okay. Final about coping. We considered there was a manifesto committee which sat and discussed this thing at length. And it was our party manifesto. So we marketed it and the people bought it. So it was upon the people to say we agree or not. Okay. But so far the method of work is, but even before the manifesto committee consulted, we consulted the grassroots. Okay.
Honorable Mr. Kazooba, please give us your parting shots in a minute so that I can conclude with Honorable Joseph Ochieno.
What I'm saying, and what Major which is avoiding, I'm saying nothing can work with the corruption in the country. If you want to do anything, begin with corruption. Then other things you'll be able to achieve. Otherwise, you cannot.
Dead on inception.
We are fighting
it. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kazooba Charles from the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. Honorable Ochieno, your parting shot, sir.
No, I think it's a worthy debate. It's a fact that, unfortunately, what we're talking about is extremely important because this regime has wasted more public resources than any other in our history, and yet they've had the biggest goodwill. They've had net inflows in terms of foreign direct investments, grants, loans, aids, and everything else. They've had the goodwill of the international community more than any other time in our history, and there's nothing to show for except apartments and flats and possibly their very big bank accounts And the other day, Mr. Museveni is in Congo in the streets of Kampala, which was, again, you sit down there and then you see like, this guy is going to war, including with tanks in Kampala, and then this is the revolutionary leaders, allegedly. So no, it's terrible. No, these reforms are overdue, but unfortunately, as Charles says, they're unlikely to have any meaningful impact long term for our people unless and until NRA leaves power. And it's actually possible if young Ugandans woke up and saw what happened in Dokolo recently, saw what we did in Oyam. So in part what also happened in Uganda, because there's a lot of fear, the Ugandans can begin to say, look up and look at issues, except for violence against opponents and people with whom we disagree. NRA after 38 years is a tired system. People should begin to reorganizing, joining parties like UPC or any other, but the deal is UPC. You young guys engaging, and then we have to reclaim this mess and reorganize it over the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you so much. It's exactly 9 p.m. We've come to the end of this particular conversation. I would love to thank all of you gentlemen for coming through and always coming here and respecting, always accepting our invitation right here. It's always a privilege and humbling. We are not the most brilliant of them all to stand before you and say things. No, it's just always the privilege and the grace of God that we are here. So everything we do is always by the privilege and the grace of God. Ladies and gentlemen, see you tomorrow at exactly 8 a.m. We'll be here with the Mighty Drive Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. On camera was Lillian Luede, and the entire production headed by Mr. Mokose Arnold Anthony, the program's director, right here at Govt TV. You can advertise with us. Just send us a message through our social media platforms. We can do live streaming for events, photography, videography, events organizing, and a lot of things. So just be able to send us a direct message at the Alternative Uganda at Govt TV, and we'll be able to get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow, same time, same station. Good evening, Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.